Let's do it.
Out to the right. 5 seconds to go in the first half. Dante fires deep to the left. Moss caught it at the 11, but now he pitches it to Mo Williams. Touchdown! You gotta be kidding me!
All right. We are back with another episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast. I am your host, Jason Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownJason. And I'm back with my boys. We got the full crew in here. And we got Flu Game Part 2 from QB1. JR, man, how you doing? You going to survive? You making it?
I'm not good right now, man. I'm struggling. As you can tell, voice is gone. A lot of fluids in me. A lot of Gatorade, a lot of water, but I'm making it.
Man. And I know the listeners are just sad. The silky smooth southern stylings of JR have been replaced with the raspiness of Lou Rawls, but we gonna make it. We gonna make it.
I sound like the people that has to put the little voice box up to them if they smoke too much.
You really do. But Myles, my man,
what up?
You know, I don't think while I was there, I got all the way as turned up as Vegas, Myles, but I did have a good time. How are you doing, man? How are things? How's Teddy?
Teddy's good. Teddy went to work with me today. Yeah, he's good. He's chilling now. Got to go to the dog park earlier. Hey, we're just living that suburban life.
Oh, hold up. Is your weekend alone? Is that started?
No, it starts tomorrow night.
Okay, all right. All right. We'll show up with the keg around 9 p.m.
I'm about to say I'd be drunk if
All right, and last but certainly not least, the Sexy Prince,
the Black Panther.
The one thing
and yes, we were able to pull the man out of his 18th showing of Black Panther to come on and record the pod with y'all. What's going on, my man?
I'm hurt because you talked about not having this silky smoothness with JR and whatnot. You didn't even look to me to know that I could provide a high level of disappointment when it came to the silky smoothness. So, but yeah, I'm good. Okay. I've seen Black Panther 5 times now. Probably going to be a 6th time. I don't know, sometime soon or whatever. Maybe I'll take Myles or something like that.
Why don't you just wait for it so you can just go stream it online?
Y'all don't have bootleggers in Minneapolis?
Oh, we have bootleggers, but
I can't see my.
Where y'all getting your haircut up there, man?
Yo, I'm trying to pay Marvel's like Chadwick's all them salaries, so then the next Black Panther movie that comes out, I can be like, hey y'all, you see how amount of money I put into your thing, so put me in the movie. I can be, bodyguard number 3 or something like that in the next movie. So
all that money's going to rich white dudes.
Yinka taking pictures of all them receipts and just sending them to Chadwick.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's hop into this show here, and we got a good question to kick things off here, and this will be the question of the day, and we're gonna go in reverse order a lot today. We're gonna let JR rest the voice a little bit so he can hopefully make it all the way through the show, but as we're about to start free agency and, the deadline for franchise tags just happened, Prince, Myles, JR, what are your thoughts? Franchise tag, is it good or bad for the NFL? Yinka, lead us off.
I think it's bad, mostly because I think teams need to be being put in positions a lot more to make a decision on guys, and I think it would create create a little bit more urgency for a team to figure out, do they want to keep this player, do they not want to keep this player. And I think, yes, they do get penalized, obviously, if they keep slapping the franchise tag on, but I think it's a little bit of a cop-out for teams. So.
Okay. And with that, he gone. Either the internet let out or Sexy Prince actually had to go to that next show in the Black Panther. So, Myles, what are your thoughts on the franchise tag? Is it good or bad?
I think there's a combination. I think, some teams, you get desperate for a player, you can't, maybe 1 year you can't come to an agreement on a contract extension. So you need to franchise tag him. You don't have the long-term cap situation figured out yet or something. I don't know. You have whatever reason you need, but you don't want to let this player hit free agency. So you franchise tag him. I'm of the belief though that you should only be able to franchise tag somebody at most twice. I don't like that you can do it. Basically, I know the price goes up and up and up, but like I don't like that. I think even twice might be a stretch. I think once should be like your buffer, but I understand it's what the idea is that you only get one player that you can do it on. So, but I feel like it really hurts players like look at Le'Veon Bell right now. Like even though he's getting a lot of guaranteed money in the situation for him is, especially as a running back, the older he gets and the more times they franchise tag him, the less his long-term contract extension value goes. So like,
what does long-term even mean for a running back in today's NFL?
So he's looking to cash in. He's looking for the long-term stability, right? So
he should have picked a different position.
Yeah, well, that we're beyond that. Like, it is what it is now, but like, he's looking for that. Look at all I do for this offense. I'm a running back. I'm a receiver. I want to be paid like both. We're kind of in that. So like, for him, the older he gets, the less valuable that becomes for him because the less amount of time he's going to have because that, the age of 30 that we talk about for running backs, the kiss of death, like the closer he gets to that, the less valuable he becomes. So I think they're really hurting his long-term stability that way. Because what if he gets hurt this season and boom, that's it. He's not going to get that long-term contract. And I'm all for him holding out to get his. So he's doing that, but I think the Steelers are doing him a disservice. But yeah, back to it. I think 1 to 2 years tops franchise tag. I think it can help teams keep good players for at least one more season.
Okay, and I guess from the flip side of it, because some of this and some of the argument they'll make is that it helps teams keep their best players. So from a fan perspective, I guess JR, can you see an argument, from a fan of a team? I like Le'Veon Bell playing for my team. I want my team to keep the best players. I guess, can you see the argument from the other side that, it's good for the league to keep the best players, spread out across the league, building up all these franchises, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, fans are always going to be in favor of keeping their best players or their favorite players on that same team. We've seen the NBA do something that I think is really good where they can offer their players the super max. As opposed to other teams not being able to offer them as much money. I don't think the NFL will ever be able to go to that because the contracts aren't fully guaranteed like the NBA contracts are. But I personally hate the franchise tag because it rewards NFL teams for being lazy during negotiations, and there really isn't a deadline set for them because they always have the franchise tag in their back pocket. And we all know deadlines really push things in the NFL. But yes, there is a franchise tag deadline, but I just think it's an unfair advantage that they always have in their back pocket. And that's what we've seen with guys like Kirk Cousins and Le'Veon Bell. Those teams really haven't been pressured into getting those long-term deals done. Have they tried? Yes, they have. But, they still can not offer those guys their true market value because they know they always have the franchise tag or using the franchise tag at least twice in their back pocket. So I think it's an unfair advantage that NFL teams got.
Okay, all right, and I get what y'all are saying, especially as it pertains to a player like Le'Veon Bell. But Kirk Cousins, I feel like he finessed the franchise tag system to his benefit in a way that will likely help him become, among the top players, if not the top paid player in the game this offseason. So, Kirk Cousins, we're not going to transition into yet another quarterback conversation. We'll probably do that soon, but not right now. Because, there've been a lot of those and there's a ton of podcasts about them. And, if we flip over to Twitter right now, I'm sure there's an argument going on about that right now. So we'll take a break from all of that. I think all of our positions are fairly well known, but there's still a lot of other things that need to happen. Free agency is coming up here. And while quarterback is a big need and is the most important position on the team, it's the position that has the most to do with, how many points we score and how many games we win. There are still a lot of other positions that need to be filled on the Minnesota Vikings. Yinka tweeted out what I would consider a not so controversial thing the other day, that, the Vikings aren't necessarily one piece away from winning the Super Bowl. As one can expect, his mentions were lit on fire. But, Yinka, since you tweeted that out and kind of stirred the pot, got people a little worked up, I guess give me your not quarterback, but give me your number one position of need for the Vikings that maybe you feel like people aren't talking about enough.
Running back. No, I'm kidding.
Wrong answer. Try again.
No, I think as I looked at how we were in the playoffs and what we were missing, I just think having a dominant defensive tackle is something that the Vikings haven't had since Sharif has been injured for the last couple seasons. And I think we saw how well he and Linval Joseph were working together when they were on the field together, and how disruptive that middle was. But I think that defensive tackle has to be addressed, at least in some opinion, even if it's just like a depth guy or a guy who's going to come in and compete for that starting role. If you can bring someone in, and then it obviously frees you up as far as the draft. But that's a position that I'm really hoping that the Vikings can somewhat address in free agency.
Okay, Myles, how about you, man? What's your top position of need that's not defensive tackles, not quarterback? What's next on the list for you?
It has to be offensive line. I think if you go look, especially on the interior, I know everybody's of this belief that Mike Remmers needs to be a guard, but
who said that? Who said that? Who had been saying that? Who said that? Who said that? Who said that? Who had been saying that?
I'm against that. At least this season, depending on how the draft falls, just based off of the players that are available. You either have to go pay a lot of money for a guy like Fleming, or everybody keeps saying Nate Soldier, but that guy's going to cost more than Riley Reef probably did on the open market, and then you'd have to move Reef. So you're paying both your bookend tackles over $13 million a year, or whatever that total number is. So I don't see that happening. I'm of the belief of keeping Reef at left, Remmers at right tackle, and then go solidifying your interior. Because, depending on what happens with Joe Berger, he's a free agent. And then after that, you just have Pat Elflein coming off surgery. You have Nick Easton coming off surgery. And obviously Pat Elflein's the center and the center of the future. But Nick Easton, he's more of a rotational offensive line depth. He can play all three interior positions, which is great. You kind of want that out of your backup. But they need to go solidify a starting left guard and a starting right guard. And then let guys like, Danny Isidora and Nick Easton be those, and Josh Andrews, the new guy they got. Let those guys be your depth pieces and go get solidified starters, at both. It doesn't have to be through free agency exactly, but you need to go get at least one starting guard in free agency, in my opinion. And there's a few guys that are out there, Zach Fulton, Josh Sidden, obviously Andrew Norrell, but I don't think we're going to be in the sweepstakes for that anyways. So, and Justin Pugh, Jack Muhort. So there's some options out there that you can go get some of these guys, and I don't think some of them would cost too much to be a starting guard. So I'm all for that. Or if the price is right, bring back Joe Berger on a decent deal. But I think it's kind of time for me, in my opinion, to move on from Berger and kind of get younger at that position. So I think guard. Definitely.
Okay. I like that. Now, JR, bring us home. And, I feel like, the listeners probably know a lot of what you might already say, since we had the episode where you were the GM and you kind of did the whole thing. But, quarterbacks off the table. Saxy Prince hit D tackle. Myles hit the interior line. What's another sneaky position that we need to upgrade that people really aren't thinking about?
I think it's corner, whether it's a nickel or an outside guy. We got Trey Waynes' fifth-year option coming up. They have a decision to make with that in May. Terrence Newman is turning 40 years old. So we know he'll be an older guy, and they're probably going to reduce his role even more significantly next year. Tremaine Brock is a free agent, and we all know we got minimal production out of him. So all you're left with is Waynes, Xavier Rhodes, and Mackenzie Alexander. Essentially, I don't really count Newman because I think he'll be more of a rotational guy or a security blanket guy next year. I don't think they really want to give him a whole bunch of reps because they want to look to the future a little bit more next year. So I think you need another outside corner, or you need a guy that you can cross-train at both outside and nickel corner. So I believe Nikel Robicoma was a name that came up. I think he would be a really good fit. I'm not sure a lot of the other names that's on the market right now. Patrick Robinson is another name that's very, very popular.
Who's that? Patrick Robinson.
He plays for the Eagles.
That name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Who is that player? What? Florida State? Did he go to Florida State?
Knowles, baby.
Okay, he did play at Florida State.
He's a first. Was he a first round or a second round pick?
I know him because he went to Florida State. That must be the only reason I know who Patrick Robinson is. We should definitely bring him in. Florida State.
Quick note, JR, you just talked about Terrence Newman. You guys notice when we drafted Trey Waynes, Terrence Newman kind of became that guy to slowly bring along Trey Waynes into his position, and then obviously once we drafted Kenzie Alexander, he's kind of stepped in that same role in the nickel position. Do you still feel like there's another spot on the defense where, I guess in the secondary, where you feel like he could maybe do that same thing? Or I know that you feel his role's going to be reduced, but what does that even look like?
No, I think Mack is going to be the full-time nickel guy next year. Now, I think Newman is just going to be that security blanket, like I said, that can play outside or nickel. I don't think they're going to give him a lot of reps at all. I think he's going to be damn near half a coach next year, honestly. And his experience is probably one of the only reasons that they're going to bring him back. Either they're going to sign or draft a guy. If it was my guess, I probably think they're going to draft a guy so Newman can – I think one of the biggest reasons they are bringing Newman back is because they want to draft a guy and have Newman play that role once again to train that guy as well.
Okay, also, so just one thing I wanted to ask, because you guys have mentioned some stuff here about some cornerbacks. So, you got Xavier, we got Trey, we got Mack, we got Terrence Newman. Y'all are talking about bringing in, maybe a draft pick, maybe someone in free agency. Like, are y'all out here talking about maybe the end of the Marcus Sherrills era? Like, how much depth we bringing in if Terrence Newman is actually
Marcus Sherrills will never die.
Player
will never die.
Only. Like, he's only listed as cornerback because you have to be listed as a position, but like, that's not what he does.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. I mean, if you can get a guy that can return kicks and punts as well as playing corner, I think it's a serious discussion that they need to have. I know Marcus Sherrills is very valuable, but I mean, you got to get younger at the position eventually, and you got all these pass-happy offenses in the NFL now. You're really going to need that fifth corner, and we all know injuries happen as well. So you can't just keep carrying four corners into a game, because if a guy gets injured, then you're down to three guys, which is a really bad situation to be in. Also,
one other thing I wanted to point out, just for cap. We talk about the cap all the time and everything, and future cap. And I think kind of what the Vikings did with Mackenzie Alexander, the year in Captain Munnerlin's last year in Minnesota, his last year of the contract, they anticipated not being able to either afford him or not wanting to. They look to kind of move on from him a year early. I think that's kind of what we might be seeing with the Vikings. They might do this year, whether it's through free agency and or the draft. Is you go draft a young guy that this year who can develop, because he won't be thrust into the fire right away, but he'll probably get enough opportunity and playing time to develop to that point where you either move on from a guy like Mackenzie Alexander or Trey Waynes after their contracts are up, because you can't afford all those guys more than likely. And to me right now, I would say it's probably Mackenzie Alexander that they're looking to move on from, in my opinion, just because he, maybe some of the hard-headedness of, wanting to commit to the nickel position or whatnot. And just, some of that attitude could be rubbing Zim the wrong way. I'm not 100% sure on that. That's just speculation, but I think that could be a move that they make during this offseason is, going to get another young corner who's cheap, but that you can develop into a position, to replace a guy like Mackenzie Alexander, so you don't have to pay him, or even a guy like Trey Wayne, so you don't have to pay them long term.
Oh man, sorry y'all. I just got distracted there because I just saw the clip of Jaylen Brown falling off the rim, and that was terrifying. Don't go watch that right now.
I'm probably gonna go watch that.
Yeah, I know you're gonna watch it, but whoa. Whoa. All right. Let's bring us back in here. And again, JR did this a little bit ago. So Myles, I'm gonna let you start it off here. And you get to fix the offense. What is your strategy? Free agency. Quarterback is not part of this discussion because that would take us down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so just, assume we're spending some money. We're spending $30-some million on a quarterback. That's chopped up however it's chopped up. One dude and a rookie, couple dudes, rookie, however it is. It's what it is. That money's gone. What is your strategy for attacking free agency to fix the Vikings offense?
Yeah, first thing I'm doing is solidifying the offensive line. I'm going after a guy like Jack Mewhort or Justin Pugh, and I'm going after one of those guys to solidify the interior. Doesn't need to be both, just because you can go in the draft and probably add a starter and save you some money there, and add a starter, in the first, second, third round. And then, so I'm doing that first. Second, I'm going after a guy like Trey Burton at tight end. I want to be able to stretch the field up the seams with a guy like Trey Burton. I think that could help open up things, especially like in a place like the red zone for Rudolph even more. You have the two tight end sets, which we know and expect DeFilippo to run a lot of, which I'm all for. And then lastly, two more. Then I would go. You have two ways of this, which is great for the running back position, depending on what they do with Latavius Murray. For me, I'd probably restructure him to lower that cap hit, and then I'm drafting a running back in the middle rounds. Someone like John Kelly from Tennessee or Mark Walton from Miami. One of those guys. I think those guys could really complement Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray. And then what I'm doing is I'm going after, in an ideal world, it'd be Paul Richardson, but I think in a more realistic world, I'm going after Taylor Gabriel in free agency and helping. I want a field stretcher, a guy that's a burner, a guy that's a gadget guy, who can do multiple things, but he doesn't need a lot of playing time to be effective. And I think Taylor Gabriel would be perfect in this offense to do that.
What about my cousin, John Brown?
John Brown would be great too if the med checks and everything check out because of all the concussions and everything. I think he'd be probably even cheaper than Gabriel in my opinion, just because of his injury history. I think he could be a really good, cheap signing that could have a really great payout down the road.
Okay. All right. Like that. Well, Saxy Prince, I think you know where we're going with this for you. Myles just fixed the offense. Now you got to fix the defense. Not really fix the defense, but improve, tweak, add depth to the defense because it was a pretty good defense already.
Sorry, I just you get a little shook after seeing that Jaylen Brown thing. Whew.
I told you not to look, man.
Yeah. So what was the question? What am I doing?
You are fixing the Vikings defense. And by fixing, of course, I mean just, plugging a few holes here and there and maybe sprinkling some depth in where you can. Yeah,
well, I don't know. I think I'm honestly on the opinion that we go out in free agency, we find a nickel corner. JR mentioned a few. You bring them in, and that's your nickel corner. And I'm honestly, this season, you kind of have an open competition on that outside corner position between Trey Waynes and Mac Alexander, and just the best guy wins. And kind of like what Myles is saying, whoever loses that competition is probably going to be on the outs. I mean, it works out for Trey Waynes is like, we're going to have to make a decision on his 5th year option. And as far as, Mac Alexander, I mean, he's already proven that he can play outside corner very, very well. It's where he's comfortable in. And I think some of that boneheadedness might come from the fact that he was forced into, a position that the team needed, but that wasn't necessarily his strength. So, I'm open I think that's how you kind of fix both positions really fast. I've already said before that I do want to bring in a guy, both draft pick and maybe a guy in free agency who is going to compete for that starting defensive tackle position. Another thing that I'm actually looking for another pass rusher. I've asked you guys in our group DMs, like, how long do you think a guy like Everson Griffin has? I honestly, I'm leaning towards he only has a few more years left in his prime, and maybe not more than 2. You saw the decline towards the end of the season. He was slowing down after his injury. Um, and that might not be a lingering thing into this next season, but I think we need to get another pass rusher, not just depth pass rusher, but maybe another guy who's going to, be in conversation of being that starting guy. If we decide to move on for Everson Griffin in a year or two. Um, and I think we're still good at safety. I mean, if you wanted to bring in a toy that, you have for the future, whatever the case is, because again, Harrison Smith is getting older as well too. And I'm not saying that these guys are going to not be great for this season, next season. I'm just saying you might start to see a little bit of that decline, and that might be a way to kind of get ahead of yourself, so this defense can remain at kind of in that top 7 style defense. I do think they'll probably take a step back this year, which is okay. But I do want to see some semblance of longevity with this, which is very difficult, as you guys know. But I just think a few moves here and there, and maybe having some more. We have this mentality that second corner position is really locked up by Trey Waynes, but I think we need to have more of an open competition there. And find Linval Joseph's backup, because we don't really have a guy behind Linval Joseph. And I think there's more holes in this defense than 1 or 2 moves, and that's why I think it's really important that Rick really addresses like the entire defense going into this offseason.
Yeah, and you raised a good point there. And even talking about the edge rushers, I know one of the talking points that have come up a lot has been our edge rushers kind of they wore down as the season went along, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. When you look at the average snaps for a team like the Eagles, when you average out kind of their snap adjusted Pro Football Focus grades over the course of the season, they were very similar to the Vikings. The difference was they spread that out over a lot of guys who weren't playing nearly as many snaps game in and game out. And that really paid off for them down the stretch. So even if you're not talking, Everson, falling off the cliff this year or next year, stacking, those guys who can come in and give those guys a rest and help preserve our defensive line, so we can actually have a rotation in there like some of those other teams do. I think that's one of those things that would be immensely helpful for the Vikings as we move forward with things. And those are the moves we're hoping that they make.
I thought you were talking about running backs for a second, but you're talking about edge rushers.
What are those?
I don't know. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's keep it moving. Running backs. I don't even know what that is. So another thing that seems to be happening a little bit here, and tweeted it yesterday, day before, sometime this week, that the Patriots and the Eagles going back to 2014 are number 1 and number 2 for the teams making the most trades in the NFL. And that's one of the things that we've discussed on this pod. It's been discussed a little bit on the pocket protectors, as well as that the trade market is still one of those places where if you're a savvy GM, there's value to be had there. I guess it seems anyway, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this. It seems as though this offseason we're starting to see a little bit more action in the trade market than we've seen of late, where maybe some of that copycat league mentality of teams are starting to realize that it does make sense to maybe flip a pick to get a veteran, or just go get your guy before they get released, and being a little bit more aggressive in that way than teams have been in the past. So what I wanted to get from your perspectives, and we can do this pretty quick, and I am actually going to start with JR, and we'll go down the line on this one here. What has been your favorite trade of the NFL offseason so far? JR, start us off.
Favorite one probably was Marcus Peters. I think the Chiefs, they basically gave him away. Yes, the second round pick seems very high in 2019, but you get a Pro Bowl worthy corner, or a guy that's been to a Pro Bowl the first 3 years in his career twice, and you get an elite player at the position for a minimal draft pick that you really don't know what is going to turn out into being, or the player that is going to be right now, and you still get him on his rookie deal. And he fills a huge position of need for the Rams going into next season. We all know Tremaine Johnson, they'll probably end up letting him go after getting Aqib Talib. But you get a guy like Marcus Peters. Yes, he comes with some off-the-field antics and some on-the-field antics as well. But if you're able to bottle up that personality, I think he's a absolute terrific fit for them. The biggest issue is just, bottling up that personality and his antics. But from a contractual side, I think it makes a lot of sense for them since he is still on his rookie deal. So Marcus Peters to the Rams was definitely my favorite deal.
Okay. All right. Myles, what has been your favorite deal this offseason?
I got to stick with the Chiefs. I think the Alex Smith trade had to have been my favorite one just because you drafted your future in Patrick Mahomes, in this last draft in 2017. You kind of knew you had another year left on Alex Smith's contract after the 2017 season, so you could go one of two ways. You could keep Alex Smith and to continue to let Patrick Mahomes, develop behind him for 2 years, or you can trade him while he's after coming off his best season as a pro, lead you guys to what should have been a playoff win but didn't, and then you get back in return all you get that I think like $17 million in cap space, and then you get a Pro Bowl level cornerback, nickel cornerback in Kendall Fuller, and a third round pick. I mean, I think that's a really good trade for the Chiefs. I think you get like I said, you get a really good quality corner, which I'm not saying it doesn't make up for the Marcus Peters trade, but it helps lessen that blow a little bit of getting rid of him. And I think it was part of the reason why they were willing to get rid of him so early. And then, on Washington's side, you didn't want to have to pay Kirk Cousins all that money, or however that relationship severed, it severed. So you go on, instead of, trying to go find somebody else, you go get a proven, top 10-ish level quarterback for a fairly, I thought they kind of got played a little bit for the Kendall Fuller aspect of it, but a third round pick, and then you extend him, I think, so you're not going into the offseason, expecting to have to make a move at QB. So I thought it was a good trade overall for both sides, but I think the Chiefs especially.
All right, and last but not least, Saxy Prince. Has there been a running back trade this offseason? No. What's your favorite trade so far this offseason?
I think it's a trade that actually just recently happened. Michael Bennett over to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Philadelphia Eagles understand that they are in a perfect window right now. They're not paying a quarterback. So when you're not paying a quarterback, what you can do is you can just keep stacking assets on top of one another. You can keep bringing in proven talent to continue to improve your teams. And, the Philadelphia Eagles clearly didn't have very many issues as far as their pass rush and stuff. But what do? They continue to get better at it. They're going to continue to allow their defense to play as well as they can. And that only takes away the pressure from Carson Wentz. And you continue to allow him to develop the right way. I think this was a very similar strategy the Vikings were trying to do with Teddy Bridgewater. But obviously, because of unforeseen circumstances, had to get away from that. But the Eagles are taking advantage of the fact that when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, you can make a lot of moves that you arguably can't sometimes when you have a quarterback who's making, X percentage of your cap space. So I think they're doing it the right way. They got a really great pass rusher that's going to, take place of Vinny Curry, who's better than Vinny Curry. And they're going to wreak havoc this season again. So, I mean, they could easily be one of the, if not the favorites, to get right back to the Super Bowl because of these things.
Vegas definitely thinks they're the favorites. So, for what that's worth.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, another question as it pertains to trades here. And I think JR is the one who posed this question. So, we won't start with him on this. We'll start with Yinka because you just finished talking. I think you're ready to go again. In your opinion, is it better to trade your mid to late round picks for veteran players? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yes. Do you want me to explain, or just
get a very quick bit of explanation? You're on the clock.
Yeah, we've said it time and time again. Proven players are always better as far as mitigating the risk between draft picks, even if it's a high round draft pick. So. Yes, absolutely. Because you're taking a flyer on a lot of these mid-round picks as it is anyways, a guy that you think might have potential. So why not go give a 5th round pick for a guy that can play? So absolutely.
Okay. All right, Myles, where you at with it?
Yeah, I'm definitely I'm a proponent of, proven NFL talent is better than unproven NFL talent. And I think especially when you get into the day 3 picks, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, I think, that's exactly what those should be used for. I'm all about the proven commodity over the unproven commodity.
Okay. And Mr. Draft himself, JR, is it a clean sweep, or are you pushing back against the use of these draft assets for veteran players?
Nah, it's a clean sweep, but I think it just depends on the situation that you're in as well, especially when you're paying a rookie quarterback. And we see teams like the Eagles and the Rams who are doing that with Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. So they're able to wheel and deal and make these trades and stack these assets. So I'm all for, like Myles said, getting proven NFL talent over, guessing in the 5th or 6th round and hoping that rookie pans out. I would rather get a guy that's proven, a veteran that's proven.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll conclude our NFL talk on this episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast. It's now time for this week's edition of This or That. JR, who's a bigger bust? Anthony Bennett or Jamarcus Josh Allen Russell?
Jamarcus Josh Allen. It's by far Anthony Bennett. I mean, yes, Jamarcus came in with a lot of hype and all this other stuff. He got a lot of money up front just because they didn't have a rookie scale back then. But, I mean, Anthony Bennett, he lasted, 4 years in the NBA, and I don't think he's playing anywhere right now. I don't really think he gets his due guilt of how big of a bust he was because it was such a bad pick. I mean, nobody expected him to go number 1, but the pick was so bad, a lot of people don't give him his due guilt of how bad he really was. So I think Anthony Bennett is by far a way bigger bust than what Jamarcus Russell was.
Minnesota people. Whoa. Do y'all agree? Myles? No?
I do not.
Okay.
I think it's got to be Jamarcus Russell for the two things. I think he got $39 million guaranteed before he even stepped on an NFL football field. I think that pales in comparison to what Anthony Bennett made. Their careers in general are both probably similar in terms of length. And then with Russell, with that first overall pick in the NFL, I think that hurt the Oakland Raiders longer than it did for a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers, just because the amount of it was easier for the Cavaliers to move on
because the Timberwolves traded for Bennett, or
yes, it was easy for them to move on from him because you found a trade partner, but easier to move on from him because the money he's making as the first overall pick was pennies. But there's no way, even in early on, it would have been hard for the Raiders to probably trade that contract of Jamarcus Russell to certain teams. So I think that's a big part of it.
Okay. Saxy Prince, bring us home. You are the decider.
He's in the Canadian League right now, Anthony Bennett.
He's in the G League.
I'll go with
pick in the G League. Come on now.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. But you can't account Jamarcus Russell made so much money and just in such a short period of time. I'm gonna go with Jamarcus Russell. I just because y'all know how I feel about paying mediocre quarterbacks. So the fact that a guy was paid that amount of money and took the Raiders nowhere, I'm just gonna go with him because the Cleveland was able to recover. They won a championship with LeBron a few years later. So where the Oakland Raiders been in the last couple years after Jamarcus Russell? Nowhere. So
okay, well, wherever they are, they're going back because Gruden's hopping in that time machine.
Oh! Let's not talk about that.
It should
old
be
school.
Good times for them out there in Oakland. We're throwing all the computers out of the office. Word processors and typewriters only.
I don't even think they can use cell phones.
All right. Well, Y'all, that was a fun episode. Before we get up out of here, though, what you guys got in the works? I know the offseason, it can be tough. It can be hard to come up with fresh new stuff to write about. JR, I know it is your season. Outside of being on a different podcast every day of the week, what else you got upcoming for us to be looking out for?
Nothing right now. I got to beat this sickness and try to stay as healthy or get back to being healthy as possible before I even think about doing anything right now. So my whole obligation right now is beating this sickness as fast as possible.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck to you on that. Myles, it is March, and I feel like March means that Myles is coming through with something for us.
What?
I mean, I thought that's what we were told in February, is that March is when some new was coming out from Myles.
It's my birthday month.
And, maybe we was going to get a little something about some wide receivers that
sir.
Myles liked in the draft or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Beyonce. What we getting?
I've been watching a lot more film lately, and I've been just writing my notes down. I plan on, if not my, full top 10 position list rankings, I'm at least going to start. I'll have a wide receiver article out that'll be about, my favorite receivers in each round, or not each round, but in certain rounds, of the draft, and certain range of the draft, and, with different skill sets. So
I love it. Saxy Prince, what are you working on that is sure to have legions of folks at Daily Norseman angry at you?
Oh, my QB or running back? Which one?
No, neither. Well, I guess both. I think I might do this. Probably would actually set people on fire. I think I might do the way too early Vikings depth chart. I think I've been thinking about trying to get that out, just before free agency hits and whatnot. So we'll see how it goes. I've become a pro at pissing off a lot of people in a short period of time. So I just wanted to make sure I can further perfect my craft and, set my mentions ablaze.
All right. Well, you keep up the good work. And, gentlemen, it's good to be back with you here. This was a fun episode. And, listeners, we'll talk to you soon. Y'all have a good one.
We really think he's gonna eventually step into the number 2 role?
He's the next Tony Romo.
I think it can be a high-end backup.
Yeah, why not?
Hey, Kevin Cobb was a good backup.
Yeah, why not?
That, like, you need a guy who's like Case Keenum was last year. YOLO.
Yeah, why not?